Indiana basketball side, they are next up in a Friday night tussle on the road at a place that has been like going to hell for them for the last several years. Was it 31 straight?
I don't know if it's that many, but I think 1998 is the last time they won there. So I was 13.
It's well, maybe the 31 is how many times Indiana had beaten Wisconsin in a row, I think, prior to this streak starting, which it's mind-boggling. I'll be honest with you. It is utterly mind-boggling for an Indiana program to lose that many times in a row into any place. I don't care where it is.
Yeah.
They don't have that kind of a losing streak at Kentucky, I think. But this is a place they haven't played well, even with a 20-point lead a year or two ago. They were not able to hold that when we thought that was going to be over. But not only that, Indiana coming off of a loss, in addition to the fact that after this game, they have to go on the road to Illinois, which just lost at home to
Maryland. Yep.
Maryland, who almost beat Northwestern last night on the road. This Maryland team is a team people better watch out for because they haven't played on the road worth a snot. They go to Illinois and win and damn near beat Northwestern last night. That was a great game that came down to the last seconds.
Yeah, they're on the rise for sure. Yeah, it's kind of like Indiana playing so poorly against a rival, and what do they get as a consolation prize? They get to go to Wisconsin. Haven't won there since the 90s. I believe I saw Wisconsin is 23-4 even in the last 27 overall games against Indiana. So Indiana got them last year when Wisconsin had an injury, I believe, but back at Assembly Hall. But man, it's been tough going for this team, and Wisconsin coming off a loss at Penn State is probably not a good thing for Indiana because they're gonna come out for blood, and it's gonna be a tough one. I'll be surprised if Indiana even makes this one a game, but hopefully they can figure some things out quickly.
Well, they have to because this is becoming problematic for Indiana, and I think it's going deeper than just winning and losing. The psyche of this team, I'm not sure where it is right now, and that starts with Xavier Johnson. He seems to be on a completely different page as to what is needed from him than what he is given. Yet another flagrant foul called on him in a game after having a flagrant foul that basically took him out of the starting lineup. And this is not good for the psyche of this team. And it's hinting at danger yet to come.
Yeah, I don't know what to think anymore with this guy. After the Ohio State game, it looked like the team itself would be a lot more dangerous if this was the version they were getting of him moving forward. Since then, 3 straight just really poor performances. He looks uncomfortable. He looks at times like a freshman. He's almost 24 years old, I think. And it's a really tough spot because I know a lot of fans will say, the team is better off with Cupps, and Cupps is part of the future anyway. And I do agree with that second part especially, but I still think if you want any chance with this year's team to do anything, I still think, unfortunately, Xavier Johnson is, an important piece, and they got to get him going. Or if they feel like it's going nowhere, and I don't know if there's a way to, what they're going to do if it just keeps going downhill. The only bright side is we've seen him go through bad slumps and then pick it up before. But this seems different, as you mentioned, with just the mindset of him and all those injuries and coming back, and then the ejection, and then the poor performances, 0 points against Purdue. It's just a lot of it's unacceptable, and I don't have a ton of confidence when that's your captain moving forward.
Yeah, and not only that, you look at the standings. Indiana sitting at the moment in a nice position at 4-3, puts them in 5th. But that's before this 2-game stretch that's coming up, having to go to Wisconsin, having to go to Illinois. Wisconsin sitting at the top at 5-1. What are those teams that they'll play? Purdue is at 5-2. Northwestern 4-2. Illinois, who they will go to, is at 3-2 after suffering that home loss. They're going to be pissed off. They're not going to, and Brad Underwood is going to have them ready. Neither good situations for Indiana to be going into.
Yeah, you start to look at what's ahead, and you really start to wonder, what's the path for this team. I don't think they can afford a single another home loss at all the rest of the season, the rest of the way. They're going to have to win every home game. They're going to have to find a way to scratch out a road win or two. And, those two things by themselves, when you look at the schedule, is going to be tough. Big Ten, it's every night. Yeah, the home team is favored most nights, but, you get those surprise games in there, and Indiana needs to be the one on the opposite end of that at some point. And there's such little margin for error with this team. So every single decision becomes incredibly important. Sitting guys out with a couple fouls or subbing a bunch, or Xavier Johnson, his decision-making on the court. There's just so much that goes into it when your team has little margin for error, and they got to pick it up. Even if they, as expected, if they lose these two games coming up, they got to quickly figure it out after that, because they got to protect home court at the very minimum.
Without question. And it is a year where I keep hearing people saying where you see that, well, we expected a drop off because of what they lost. And I'm like, nope, doesn't work that way. I'm sorry, because you look down at, look over at St. John's. What is St. John's doing? Rick Pitino went and got 10 new players, 10 different new players.
Yep.
And they are, let's see, last year they were 18-15, and now they're rolling along. You look at Ole Miss. Last year they were 13-21. They hired Chris Beard. Right now they're 15-2, 2-2 in the SEC. But those changes happen for a reason.
Yep.
And these are remarkable changes. They're not a little bit of change. And to me, it's because both of these guys are just great college coaches. They understand the college game and they coach it in that manner.
Yeah, I've written about this as well, especially in today's game with the portal, with NIL, with all that stuff going on. You're going to have most years a lot of roster turnover, and you're going to have to win immediately if you want to remain a good program. So many programs are doing it, obviously for years with the one and dones in other places, but now it's a whole new ball game. And if you can't adapt to that, and maybe there will be some outliers here and there. Maybe this year is the down year. Maybe next year Indiana builds a monster type roster, which is still possible, that kind of makes up for the roster turnover. But you can't have this very often if you want to remain a top program or get back to that. With the roster turnover, you got all summer. You got other teams that are facing the same thing, and you got to find a way to adapt and get going immediately, like so many programs have been doing.
And not only that, Providence, they have wins over Butler, Villanova, and Providence this season. They lost to UConn 69-65. This was after Indiana played them, after Indiana played UConn, to give you an example and an understanding of what has transpired there. So they're going to make the NCAA tournament. That team is. Ole Miss is ranked. Well, they were until they got beat. They'll probably fall back out. But again, you're looking at a team that was 13-21 last year, and then the next season ranked in the top 25.
Yeah.
There's not a lot more that you have to say there and to understand what's going on.
Yeah, not to mention you think you hear some of what the coaching staff says about even some recent games, and you're thinking, we're in the meat of the conference schedule now. This is January 18th, so any talk of I got to get this player doing this or that, or I got to figure out rotations, or these guys have to figure out how to play in certain situations. Like that ship has sailed. Maybe you take a few weeks or a month into the season to work out some kinks, but Now it's time to win, or you're not going to be dancing in March. So all those excuses have to kind of go away, and Indiana missed an opportunity to at least give Purdue a game and improve themselves in some of the computers, because that big of a loss obviously didn't help their cause at all.
No, Indiana has 13 games remaining on their schedule. The next 2 on the road at Wisconsin and Illinois. Then they'll face an Iowa team that has currently won 3 straight. So it doesn't get easier. Then they get Penn State, but then they have to go to Ohio State, who they did beat at home, but Ohio State is a team that's as good as Indiana.
Yep, there's no easy games. Even the one at Penn State, team that just knocked off Wisconsin. Every single night's going to be a battle and a war. And, unfortunately, Indiana at times this year, when they've been punched, they don't punch back. They did against some of the weaker teams, some of the 250, 300, KenPom type teams. They punch back against them. But anytime they're punched in the mouth from a better opponent, they have not really bounced back, which is concerning, because they're going to have to do that to squeak out some of these games that maybe they're not predicted to win.